Great. Thanks for the chance to make me be able to talk here. I think you noticed I kind of lost my voice last night. Um, Nevertheless, I'm very happy to. I hope I will survive. Nevertheless, I'm very happy to present a liver and testis multi-organ chip towards a systemic male reprotoxicity model. Um, so first of all, just a quick words to the system that we are using. So we have these different organ model chips. So we have chip 2, chip 3, chip 4, where you can culture either three organs together, 4 or 2. And these are the organ models that we have experience with. This would be the device that is pumping the chip. And we also have a heat support in case of you want to do the experiments out of the incubator, but this is not the case in this study. The chip looks like this, so that we have a glass slide on the bottom. Then we have the microfluidic, and we have an on-chip pump. We actually noticed that it's really important for the organs to interact with each other, that they have a very low fluid to tissue ratio, so that like metabolites that are produced are actually also reaching the second organ. So therefore, we have a circulating system. We don't have an inflow and an outflow because it would directly dilute our medium or our growth factors and stuff that has been produced by the cells. So we have an on-chip pump that is circulating the medium around. It's the size of a standard microscope slide, I think I said it. It's PDMS based, but we're also beta testing a COC chip at the moment. It's suitable for iPS-derived cells, primary cells, and 3D tissues. This is the microfluidic, and also important for this project is that it was able to plug in options for insert-based barrier models. And of course, it's compatible with live tissue imaging. This is what it looks like when it's set up in the lab. So some of the faces I see here, they know how it looks in their lab. Yeah, you have the starter outside, the tubes go in the incubator, and then you get started. So the study question in this case was, is it possible to co-culture and functionally link human liver and testis equivalents in the combined medium circuit on a multi-organ chip? So that's what we started off with. And since actually tissues has a bit of testis experience, but not as much, so we cooperated with the Vrije University of Brussels, with Joni Baird and Alan Gossens. I think I saw Joni. Ah, yeah, there you are. Perfect. So this was a very wonderful cooperation. And Joni started off in 2017. He published a primary human testicle model that was self-organized into organoids, and these were used. So he could show that within 4 weeks that he could stably culture Sertoli cells, myoid cells, Leydig cells, and also germ cells, so proliferative spermatogonia. You can see them even at day 0 and in week 4. And he could also see that there was a stable testosterone production in the adult testicle organoids. He actually, we talked at the beginning of the conference, and he actually told me that he has some new model or more advanced model now. So you can find it in the poster number 677. So it's going to be in the afternoon session, so please make sure to go to Joni and learn more about the new model as well. So in this case, we connected the testicular model that Joni developed and connected it with the liver spheroids. Since the testicular model was in a transwell insert, we used the chip 3 because it was just one of the transwells that are very big, so we had to go to the chip 3. So we then connected this in the big compartment, liver spheroids, and then just used the third compartment to just do medium exchange. The testicular model was like I said, in a transwell model. Then there was an agarose support, and within 3 days after seeding the cells, the organoids formed, and then they were only transferred in the chip. So they were prepared in static beforehand, and then transferred into the chip. A lot of people actually always come to us and say, like, okay, yeah, well, what do you do if you do multi-organ chips? how do you manage that they can interconnect, and how do you choose medium? So I was just like thinking maybe I can tell you a little bit on how in this case we actually try to figure out which medium is a good medium. So we actually started off with just taking very simple approach, using the testis organoid medium, using the liver medium and something in the middle, or a mixture. And we looked just at very simple data, either in static or in multi-organ chip, and also in co-culture or single culture. And we could see that actually the medium behaved very different for the different, for the cultures. They behave different with the different media, let's put it like this. And we could actually figure that especially in the co-culture, the liver medium actually made or had a very high metabolic activity. And also, but on the other hand, the LDH, at least at the beginning, wasn't as high as in the other organ cultures. So with this, we then looked at the organoid structures. So we could see that the primary testicle organoids at day 10 still looked fine, the liver spheroids the same. We then looked at the different cells, if they are expressed in the testicle organoids, and we could detect Leydig cells, Sertoli cells, and also spermatogonia. And then we looked at the testosterone production, right? One of the main things to look at, and we could see that actually in the chip, with the liver medium, we had less, like the blue one would be the testicle organoid medium, and the liver model, we actually could see that there was much less testosterone produced in single cultures. However, if we compare the lower line, the dotted line is a static culture, to the multi-organ chip layer, we could see actually that there's in the chip there's more testosterone produced than in static culture. However, once we connected the two organ models, we actually saw again very baseline testosterone. Our guess is that actually the liver already metabolized the testosterone. So we couldn't really detect an increase in CYP3A4 concentration in the liver, but the amount of testosterone is anyway quite low, so you wouldn't really expect to see any increase of CYP3A4 due to the concentration, but this was our guess. But yeah. On the other hand, inhibin in this medium actually increased, and you could see especially for the co-culture here, the upper line, the inhibin concentration really increased most. If we looked at the liver spheroids, we could see for all different cases for immune histology staining, we couldn't really see any difference between the different models. Even though at one of the medium we could see some more increase of LDH, we couldn't see any like necrotic core or tunnel staining that was very expensive. So it looked all fine. Albumin was also produced, but we could see that there were like difference in CYP, like in the CYP expressions on the fold change. So we could see that, for example, for the testicle medium, CYP2B6 was increased, and CYP3A4 was decreased for in the multi-organ chip cultures. Looking at the testicle organoids, staining them, we couldn't actually detect much difference of the different testicle organoid of the different culture mediums. So actually there was no big change between them. So then we moved on and decided on a medium that was Williams E based, and we added some growth factors that we knew were essential for both the cultures. So we knew that, for example, for testicle organoids, we wouldn't be able to use any FCS, which we anyway replaced several times in the HepRG cultures. So we used a very specific serum that we knew worked with the testicle organoids, but we also knew that, for example, insulin is needed for the HepRG spheroids, and also hydrocortisone, a little concentration was needed. So we kind of tried to find a mix of both worlds and otherwise keep it as simple as possible. And then we exposed this to cyclophosphamide. So we had 3 days of co-culture beforehand, so just to get the system stabilized, and then applied cyclophosphamide. Cyclophosphamide is a prodrug, and Olivier Frey could show in 2014 already that actually if you use conditioned medium, like if you co-culture liver and cancer, you can see that there's an effect from cyclophosphamide is bioactivated by the liver and the cancer growth is actually stopped. However, if you use just conditioned medium, like liver in one well and then pipette it to the other well, you could actually see hardly any stop of growth. So we can see that it's really important to connect the two organs directly with each other in a circulation. And so we tried this same compound and also combined it either in a co-culture or a single culture and then compared it, of course, to the vehicle control. And we could see for the liver, comparing it to the vehicle control, that we had an increase in CYP2B6 and CYP3A4. Also, CYP3A4 was really expected. CYP2B6, we could see that also in other publications it was also shown, but it was actually not something that we immediately expected. And then if we looked at the testicle organoids, we could actually see that there was a difference between single culture and co-culture, and we could see actually that there was a significant decrease of germ cells if we treated them with cyclophosphamide in co-culture, but not in single culture. So the summary would be that multi-organ chip co-cultures of human liver and testis equivalent were maintained at steady state for 1 week, but we think we could have gone even longer. And the co-cultures reproduce specific natural and drug-induced liver testis systemic interaction. So we think actually it was quite a successful project. So I would really like to acknowledge the work of VU Brussels, so Joni Baird and Alan Gossins and W. Cools. And at Tissues, Isabel Riesler did a lot of this work, so I'd also like to thank her, Alex, Daniel, Annika, and also Uwe. And since I think I still have a few minutes, right? Perfect. So first of all, of course, please come to our booth, right? So if you have any questions, we are there. You can also have a look at the system. But since I have a bit of time, I think it's not directly related to reprotoxicity, but I think it really makes sense to not connect only two organs, but either go further to 4-organ connection. Then I think you could also enter this into this, and you have shown very nice data on interconnected data, right? So just to give you an idea what is potentially possible is that we actually go into a 4-organ chip combinations where we have an intestine that is actually absorbing substances, where we have a distribution, where we have a liver metabolizing the drugs, and then an excretion over the kidney model. And we could see that, or we could show that with a model that was made out of, in a project of Oytox Risk. And we could actually see that we worked with different organ models from all different kind of companies together, put them together, and applied haloperidol. And we could actually see that it was applied, like passing like it was absorbed, it was metabolized. It was also excreted, and no, it was actually not excreted into the circuit. So we only could see no haloperidol in the excretory circuit, and this is actually, when we check back, especially this what we also see in patient data. So we could see the parent compound in the circulation. We could see the metabolites, but not in the excretory circuit. And we combined it with the liver organ, with a neuro compartment. But I think you could as well just add the testicle organoids and integrate them into the chip, and then test male reprotoxicity in this system. We've also showed it, or tried it with another drug. So we orally administered carbamazepine. So on the intestine, it passed the intestine. We could detect it in the fluidics, connecting all 4 organs. We could see the parent compound, also the metabolite. And we could, in this case, also see that in our excretory circuit, the kidney actually actively transported the carbamazepine also in this kind of urine circuit. So we could see the parent compound, as well as the metabolites also in the excretory circuit. And we've then also added, we wanted to add the blood-brain barrier as well. So in this case, we weren't able to do this with our project partners. So we worked with our own IPS line. We also, similar to you, differentiated our cells from iPS cells, so that we had an autologous chip, and connected it in a transwell. There was the blood-brain barrier cells on the bottom, so specific endothelial cells, and neurospheres on top, and then I connected them together, and we tried different compounds again, and could see that depending on the compound and the transport, we actually could really detect the same way as we expected, that atenolol, for example, had a very low transfer rate into the blood, passing the blood-brain barrier. Carbamazepine had a medium transfer rate into the blood-brain barrier, and verapamil had a very high transfer into the blood-brain barrier. So we could really detect what we expect, and I think with this we have a very powerful tool to also replace some of the organ models, make other organ models in, or put them in, and use it also for reprotoxicity. So I think we are able to move on with these projects, and looking forward to what's coming up next. And with this, I would like to thank you all for listening to me. And I'm ready for some questions, and I hope I manage with the microphone then.
Chair's prerogative and ask a quick question. So I noticed that with your liver you're using Hep-G cells, which have a complicated differentiation protocol involving astronomical levels of corticosteroid, if I recall, and I haven't looked at the Hep-Gs in a while. When you put your tissues together, like we found with liver in vivo, the free concentrations of cortisol are 5 nanomolar, but we typically use like 100 nanomolar. What kind of cortisol do you have to use with your Hep-G cells, because that might also affect some of the steroid, because cortisol can be interconverted. The steroid hormone metabolism is really crazy.
Yeah, we actually noticed it with also, especially with pancreatic islets. It was a big issue because the Hep-Gs needed it, but our pancreatic islets.
At like what concentration? Above 100, you get 100 nanomolar cortisol. You start to get into.
I think it's about just below. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's about 150 nanomolar. Right. Thanks, Baron.
Thank you, Ilka. Oh, that's very loud. I have a question on the concentration of the testosterone production. I mean, it's highly dynamic. It's typically fluctuating strongly during the day. Are you able to really recapitulate the fluctuations in testosterone levels? And if you're not, how could you? And the other thing I have to ask it, how much of the testosterone is stored in the PDMS? It's a highly hydrophobic.
Yeah, so the first question, so anyway, to the testosterone, I think we could, didn't do it in this study, but we could of course do non-specific binding and then test on the testosterone how to be absorbed in the PDMS, but we're also working on the COC chip just to avoid these kind of things. But we could see that actually this was not the case why we only had basal layer expression of testosterone, because we could see testis alone in the chip actually had production of testosterone, right? So we could, we had lower amounts than with the testicle medium, but we could detect it actually in the chip. So we had a stable production of testosterone in the chip, but not in co-culture. And the other question, you have to help me again. So yeah, we didn't detect because we only measured once a day. So I'm not aware if we could detect it. Maybe Yoni, do you have an idea? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he just repeated. I don't know if there are other people in the other room. So he just said also it's since we only measured once a day, you would need then to measure it more frequently to see any effects. Would you expect something like a change, Yoni? Okay. Okay. So maybe it's a good idea.
Hello, thank you.
Yes.
I have a question regarding the number of liver spheroids that you were placing in your system. Did you, I don't know, consider that? Like, is it based on the biomass that you wanted to have in the system to generate metabolites, or how did you select that?
So we've, is it on? Yeah, right, yeah. We usually try to calculate like 100,000 of the functional unit, but we also try to equalize it always to the second organ, right? So that we don't have like one organ that is like super big compared to in vivo. So we always try to find it in a ratio. This time we worked around 40 spheroids. But in fact, actually, since we saw that so much testosterone was metabolized, I think one could actually think about reducing the number of spheroids. And also, Linda, I don't know, what I wanted to say for the liver, we are also working now with primary cells, right? So I think you have a fact. I mean, it's easier to develop the project with like a cell line, of course, but we notice it in several projects that HepRG are not the right thing to go because they lack some CYP activities. So we try to find different versions, right? So depending on what kind of study question you have.
A very nice talk. So for your co-culture model, I noticed you see a lower level of testosterone. I wonder whether you measure the sex hormone binding protein from your HepRG cells, because unless you measure the total testosterone but not the free testosterone. Because SHBG, they can bind the steroid hormone. Maybe that is a potential reason you see the lower testosterone. Yeah. Another question is, you culture the testis organoid, you will use a gonadotropin, like luteinizing hormone HCG. So how do you, like following his question, how do you like control the gonadotropin to make sure it's like dynamic, especially during a day compared to female? It's very dynamic, like from the daytime and the night. So do you use dynamic like a gonadotropin hormone?
No, we didn't consider it. Actually.
Great. Thank our speaker again.